Welcome back to Episode 9, Season 2 of the Learning Curve podcast with Edmonton Catholic Schools. We're thrilled to have you back or to welcome you for the first time today. Our spotlight in this episode is on Ray Pryma, a high school teacher with Edmonton Catholic Schools. Ray will share his insights on creating a classroom culture focused on learning and how he leverages technology to produce short YouTube video podcasts on math concepts, flipping the learning experience and providing learning and review support to his students and others globally. Before we delve into the captivating content ahead, let's take a moment for reflection. In the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit. Dear God, grant us your wisdom and guidance. May our words resonate with educators, inspiring classrooms filled with empathy and understanding. Bless us with patience and resilience as we navigate the journey of creating positive learning environments. In the spirit of growth and learning, we offer this prayer. Amen. With respect, we acknowledge that we are recording on the traditional land of Treaty 6, the ancestral territory of Indigenous peoples. We pay tribute to the Métis Nation of Alberta, Region 4, and the enduring contributions of Indigenous communities. With gratitude, we honor their wisdom and resilience. As a united community, let us engage with the diverse peoples who call this land home. May our interactions be guided by positivity, celebrating the richness of Indigenous cultures, and working towards reconciliation through respect, empathy, and collaboration. May our journey be marked by humility, compassion, and a shared commitment to truth and understanding. Now let's dive into the agenda for today's episode. In Jennifer's Learning Lab, she explores the fascinating topic of interactive learning to elevate student performance. Our main guest, Ray Pryma, sheds light on creating a classroom culture centered on learning and the power of technology in education. In this episode, we're throwing back to last year's segment titled, We're Still Doing That, with Tim Cusack. Tim will provide a reflection on one-size-fits-all summative assessments. And lastly, Allison guides us through the Lit Literature segment, featuring the article by Douglas B. Reeves, Leanne Young, and Ken O'Connor, titled, What's Worth Fighting Against in Grading? That's all for today. Let's jump in.
Welcome to the Learning Lab, where we decode the brain's secrets of learning. I'm your host, Jennifer Espejo-Harasimiuk, ready to take you on a synaptic saunter into the incredible world of interactive learning. Interactive learning isn't just a flavor of the week teaching method, it's a brain-boosting strategy. In the realm of cognitive neuroscience, there's a powerful principle. Neurons that fire together wire together. This concept is at the heart of interactive learning. When students engage in interactive activities, they're not just passively receiving information, they're actively forming neural connections. Our brains are wired to respond to interaction and engagement, activating the recognition, affective, and strategic networks, each of which are addressed when incorporating the UDL principle of providing multiple means of representation, engagement, and action and expression. So, how can teachers harness this power in their lessons? Here are 3 easy-to-implement strategies to try. 1. Think, pair, share. It's an interactive learning staple we've explored before, and it's such a good one it merits another mention. And it exemplifies the UDL principle of engagement. In the think phase, individual reflection activates specific neural pathways, particularly in the prefrontal cortex responsible for the higher order thinking. During the pair and share phase, these neurons fire again in a social context, strengthening the connections as students articulate their thoughts and listen to others, engaging language processing and emotional centers in the brain as well. Next, peer teaching is a social learning at its best and embodies the UDL principle of action and expression. When students teach their peers, they're reactivating and reinforcing their neural pathways related to the subject matter. This reciprocal process of teaching and learning not only consolidates their own understanding, but also builds social and communicative skills essential for comprehensive brain development. And third, role playing. It activates the brain's mirror neurons, which are involved in empathy and understanding others' perspectives. As students engage in role playing, they're firing neurons associated with memory, understanding, and emotional processing. This multifaceted neural activation helps solidify learning in a meaningful and lasting way. Notice how each of these strategies requires students to interact with one another. They leverage the social nature of our brains to enhance learning. They help students not just academically, but also socially, preparing them for a world where interpersonal skills are as vital as academic knowledge. With that, dear listeners, let me leave you with one final point to ponder until our next episode. What strategies might you try to enhance learning while also building connection and community? Let us know in the comments.
Well, welcome to the show, Ray.
Appreciate it. Thank you. Thank you for inviting me. This is fun. This is really looking forward to this.
Yeah, we're excited to hear about all the great work that you've been doing at your school site. But before we begin, let's just share a bit about your career so far and what brought you to education.
Well, way back when I graduated from St. Joe's High School, yay, Saints, graduated in 1980. So it was a few years back. And I decided I was going to go to university, but I wanted a stepping stone. So I actually went to Concordia College. And I tell my students that you don't always have to go to U of A. There are so many other incredible institutions out there, post-secondary institutions, McEwen, Concordia College, and of course, our beloved U of A. So I went to Concordia College, and I'm so grateful for going to Concordia College because I actually met the most incredible professors back then, and they turned me on to mathematics. They turned me on to physics. They turned me on to chemistry. They turned me on to just learning. And I still remember him. His name was, my chemistry and physics prof was Garland Paul Park Kuntz. And he looked like Ernie from Sesame Street and even laughed like Ernie from Sesame Street. So it was really cool. And then the other gentleman was Professor Bill Fried, who I adore both of those men. And I totally believe that their styles is what influenced me as a teacher. They were incredibly forgiving. They were incredibly passionate about what they were teaching. And I really thought at that point, you know what? I want to be just like these guys. I want to be just about passion for learning. And a lot of their style has kind of, dribbled off onto me here. So I feel very, very honored and privileged to be part of that. I went to the University of Alberta. I graduated from mathematics, a Bachelor of Science in Mathematics, minor in economics and physics of all things, and loved it. It was all math-based, so I knew right there I had to do something. It was my brother, actually, who said, what are you going to do next year? I said, of course, I'm going to work because I've got a math degree. And I was, well, you might want to look at something. And he says, try an education course. And I'm like, are you kidding? Really? Education? Come on. Okay. He says, no, try one. I tried one. I was hooked. That was it. I knew my destiny was to teach. And all through my teaching degree, which was a 2-year specialization, I actually overloaded in the spring and summer and I overloaded in the fall so I could get out a half year early. And I loved it. I absolutely loved it. That's how passionate I was about teaching. And my dream when I was teaching was to teach at Archbishop MacDonald High School. That's what I was telling you. I want to teach at Mac. I want to teach at Mac. It took me 29 years, almost 30 years to get there. Yeah, and I finally got to Mac, which I'm really, really happy about. But after I graduated, I got a few contracts here and there, and then got hired on with Greater City Edmonton Catholic. I spent 21 years there teaching everything from high school to junior high, and then one day I met Mr. Fiacco in the hallway at junior high school, and I happened to be teaching his daughter. And here's this guy walking down the hallway, and I'm like, hey, wait a second, suspicious looking guy, he's a big guy, he's a big voice, and I'm like, excuse me, sir, can I help you? And he introduced himself, and I introduced myself, and he says, listen, I want you to come to Edmonton Catholic. And I went, really? Me? And he goes, yes, yeah, I want you there. So I immediately put in my application, and I got hired. by ECSD, and I'm very, very proud to be a member of ECSD. And I went back to my old alma mater. I went to St. Joe's High School, and I would have never have believed that I would have taught in the same school that I graduated from. That was just an incredible journey. Was part of the PSDL program, became math department head there for a couple of years. And it was there, after 9 years, I transferred over to Archbishop MacDonald and finally worked for Mr. Fiacco. And it was wonderful, great experience. But during my time at St. Joe's under the self-directed learning program, we found that a lot of kids were coming to the help desk for extra help. And I'd sit at the help desk and of course, want to help the students. And they'd come up and they say, "Oh, Mr. Pryma, how do you do number 10 here?" So I'd sit down, okay, number 10's like this, and discuss it with them and say, okay, you can take this approach, that approach. And, oh, okay, thanks very much. Slide over to the next student. Mr. Pryma, yes. How do you do number 10? Well, it's like this and like this and like this and like this. And you can use this approach. And it was basically, I'm saying the same thing again. Slide over to the next kid. How do you do number 10? So you got to the point of after doing number 10 about 18 times, I got the idea, there's got to be a better way. There has to be a better way to do this. So, and because sometimes that same student will come back and say, "Can you go over number 10 again with me? Because I got it, but I want to be comfortable with it." And you'd basically say exactly the same thing over again, explaining things. I thought at that point, there's got to be a better way. So I looked at the SMART program, because we're already doing the notes and SMART notes. Looked at the SMART program, and I noticed there was a video segment in there. Went onto the net, talked to the SMART people a little bit and said, okay, how does it record your voice? Yes, but you need a headset. Great. Approached my administration back then and said, I want to start looking at some videos. And they said, well, that sounds pretty cool. What do you need? Well, I need to spend a little bit of money. We got to spend money on a headset and a microphone. And he says, well, how much that's going to cost? And it was actually fairly reasonable. It was about $150. We made the mistake of using the cabled network. So we ended up having a 35-foot cable going from the computer to the front, which was located in the back of the classroom on top of a whole bunch of desks located in the smartboard located at the front of the classroom. So we're sitting there, and sometimes you turn one way and it would unplug, and oh, what a mess. But we decided we're going to try that. And the students took to it like duck to water. It was just absolutely amazing. The kids, the response for it. So they'd come up and they said, I would have a list. Okay, these are the following questions that are podcasted. Some of the students then who were very shy about approaching a teacher at a help desk or even coming in for extra help during lunch or after school suddenly had a way of getting the help that they needed. That to me spoke volumes. And then for the kid who turns around and says, and I keep referring to them as kids because they are kids. I'm old. There are kids. So they have an opportunity to look at this podcast again and again and again and again and again. And I uploaded them only to the St. Joe site at one time. And I kept him there, and I kept him like, oh, this is ours. This is ours. Typical of most teachers. I'm going to hold on to it. I'm going to die, and they're going to bury me with my USB stick in my pocket. And I'm looking at this, and I'm going, no. And I went to an International Baccalaureate conference in Albuquerque, New Mexico. Woo. They even have a picture of Bugs Bunny outside saying turn left at Albuquerque, which was quite funny. And I was telling the gentleman who was presenting for us and doing the conference about the podcast. He says, why are you hoarding these? And I didn't have a good answer. He says, these should be shared with the world, not just within your own little community, within your own little division. It should be shared with the world. You have a very valuable commodity here that you can release to everyone and let everyone benefit from it. That is what I needed to hear. I immediately went to the YouTube channel. I talked to a bunch of my students who surprisingly had YouTube channels. Kind of strange, but it was interesting. They showed me how to do it. I went to it was actually very simple. Figured out a name, and from that point on, the rest is history. I kept uploading not just questions but actual lessons. I have the biggest nightmare for a lot of teachers, I bet, is when you come and a student approaches you with that yellow sheet, and that yellow sheet saying, "I'm going on vacation. I'm missing the next 2 weeks." Right? You don't know what they're going to do. Like they're panicking. You're panicking because as soon as they come back, teach me. Well, I can't go back and teach you 2 weeks of stuff that you missed because you're on some beach somewhere. I'm sorry. I'd like to help you as much as I can. Now it's like, here's the podcasts. Here's the ones you're going to miss.
Mm-hmm.
Work on vacation when you can. When you come back, you have those podcasts to help you out, help catch you up. Now, granted, the podcasts will never replace a teacher.
Yeah.
They can't replace a teacher. They're there to supplement learning. They're there to help the student learn. And if they need that extra additional learning time, they can watch it again and again and again and again. I always tell my students, watch it at 1.5 speed. You're going to get so tired of my voice, right? And they're just excited about it, and it's great. And some of the idea for that podcast, and I look back at it now, is I look at it and it says, I wish I would have had something like that when I was younger.
Mm-hmm.
Because I grew up above my parents' business. My parents were photographers,
Mm-hmm.
and they owned a business downtown Edmonton. And I'd come home from school, and I'd have math, 9 o'clock in the morning. I'd come home from school by 3:30. I'd have to work in the photo studio till 6 o'clock. 6 o'clock to 7 o'clock, we'd have supper, clean up. By the time we get onto math, it was about 7:30, 8 o'clock at night. Well, how much do you remember 11 hours later?
Mm-hmm.
Gosh, I wish I would have had this commodity. And I look at this, and I look at a lot of the kids. They're no different than I was. A lot of these kids after school go to jobs. They have to support their families, or they're saving money for their education, or saving money for latest Nintendo game, or whatever it is. They need to work. They have to work.
Mm-hmm.
So when they come home, they're frustrated because they can't remember it. In comes the podcasts. They can come in, they can look at it, and they can get these ideas, re-see the lessons, listen to a familiar voice. And then they're able to watch this whenever they want. They can watch it in the morning as they ride the bus to school,
Mm-hmm.
because it is on YouTube, which is fantastic, right? And YouTube's accessible by anybody. So I look at the metrics of my web channel and just see how many different people, not just from Edmonton, all over Canada, all over the United States. I have people in China watching my YouTube channel. The latest one I thought was just amazing is I got an email from Egypt.
Oh, wow.
Egypt. And they're saying, we watch your podcasts all the time. They're fantastic. And then I find out that they're actually, it's a government school that
Mm-hmm.
follows the Alberta curriculum.
Yeah.
And I'm like, wow, what a rush that is, just to see that this is accessible. So the guy from the IB conference was right. You have something, share it. Share it with the world. Let the world see. Let the world benefit from this. Right?
Yeah.
So that's the whole story. Sorry it took so long.
Oh, it's wonderful to hear the passion you have for teaching, and how you found that in your career to share that passion on such a large scale for students and for teachers.
I love it.
Internationally.
I'm on a Facebook page, which is the Alberta High School Teachers Facebook
Mm-hmm.
page, and a number of teachers saying, "Oh my goodness, I'm teaching Math 20 for the first time. Message me, I'll help you. Don't worry. Here's some podcasts. Here's some notes. Let me help you out." I mean, I don't like the idea of reinventing the wheel.
Mm-hmm.
As I remember my first year teaching high school, this is way back in Greater St. Albert Catholic, I was given, I couldn't believe it. That's when everything was 3 credits. All the sciences were 3 credits.
Mm-hmm.
So they would just pile it on. I had 9 courses, never taught them before. 9 courses to teach in 1 year.
Mm-hmm.
That was crazy. From physics 10 and 20, chemistry 10 and 20, biology 10 and 20, or math at that time was called Math 23. I don't know if you remember. That's going way back. Okay. I also had a Science 11, and surprisingly enough, and I know all the English teachers out there will cringe when I say this, I actually had an English 13 that I had to teach, which was, I guess, equivalent to a 10-2 now. And I'm like, it was a lot. That whole year was a lack of sleep year.
Yeah.
I must have aged probably 20 years that 1 year. And I said to myself, never again will I let that happen. Not to me or to anyone else. And so that's why I share things.
And that's still a reality our teachers are living in today.
Yeah.
You can get these heavy course loads one year, these light course loads, new courses.
Yeah.
It's not something that's resolved in education.
No, it's not. And I always said to myself, if there's a chance for me helping someone else, I'll help them. Yeah. I don't mind that at all. I think, a lot of that's our Catholicity.
Mm-hmm.
That's being Catholic. That's being giving. That's being sharing. That's being who we are as Catholics. We are forgiving, loving people.
Mm-hmm.
And we want to share what we have, our gifts. If it can help you, great. If you look at it and go, well, this is not what I do, then at least I tried helping you. And that's the main thing. That's what I want to do.
That's wonderful. We're going to go a bit more into assessment now, because as you know, that's my role as an assessment and reporting consultant. So if you don't mind, I'd like to ask you some questions on teacher clarity. And the first simply is, how does this system that you've developed over the years, these podcast videos for students, help students know what the goal is, their learning goal?
Well, the neat thing is what I did is I've taken all of the podcasts and I've linked them directly into the notes. So I QR coded them. So every teacher knows, every question, math teacher especially, every question links to some sort of piece of the curriculum. Okay, so you've got question A's can be on this particular thing. Well, guess what? There's the little QR code the kid can scan with his phone and watch the podcast and how to do this. So the idea of linking that directly to the curriculum, that's really, really important. So now they see the actual specific topics. At the end of every chapter, all my students on their Google Classroom are what we call I can statements. And all the little things about the curriculum, all the little details that they need to know are there, and it's presented as a checklist. Okay, so they can actually use a checklist and say, okay, I know how to do this. I can do this. So they'll put a little check mark, and then they'll read the next curriculum thing and go, wow, gee, I don't know how to do it. Well, below that is the page number and a question number. And they go to that page number, that question number, check it. Then they can go back into the notes and cross-reference it with the notes and go, oh, this is the concept I don't understand. There's the QR code, scan it. Now I can watch the podcast on that concept to help me with my learning. Yeah. And that's really, to me, is wonderful. I think the biggest thing about those podcasts, which I think are incredible, is that it saves a teacher a lot of time, okay, in terms of having to repeat themselves. I had a student who had learning disability, and she said to me, Mr. Pryma, I watch your podcast. I had to watch this one podcast 20 times because of my learning disability. And they went, wow. I went, really? She says, I finally got it. Which to me, when you get it, and every teacher knows this, when you hear a student say, I finally got it, it's like, yes. So happy, big gold star on your forehead kind of thing. I think it's so wonderful to be able to do that for them. And that to me is how they link it directly to the assessment. They know and the other cool thing is if they watch enough or if they learn well enough, they're watching the podcasts. And the coolest thing is a kid will turn around and say, I know what he's going to say next. I know exactly where he's going here. Oh yeah. He's going. That's exactly what I would have done. Then we know they've learned, right? So the cool thing about the podcasts are there not just as a support thing, but is a way for them to check. And I love the fact that, okay, this is my style of teaching. This may not necessarily be your style of teaching. Okay, so it's like getting a second opinion. It's like when you go to the doctor and the doctor says, well, we got to remove that mole on your back. Okay, go to another doctor who says, no, it's a beauty mark. Don't worry about it. The idea of getting a second opinion, a second approach to something, to me is so incredibly valuable. They see different ways. And I've been in the teaching realm now here for 36 years. This is finishing my 36th year. I've seen a lot. I've seen a lot of things coming and going. I remember paper attendance. I remember a lot of things before Power School came and before any kind of Marks program came, before cell phones. This is how long my career has been. And I've seen a lot of things, and I've seen a lot of things that come, and I've seen a lot of things that go, and I've seen a lot of things that worked. And what I try to do in the podcast is use the things, my experience, in what has worked. And again, like I said, it's just a second opinion. Students can use it all they want. If they want to skim through it real fast and they can scrub ahead on the video, let them scrub ahead. That's okay with me. I just know that it's out there to help, and it's out there to give them that second opinion.
Our department's been digging in really heavily into universal design for learning. It's been a lot of the PD that's guided our jobs as consultants this year, and it'll be a big rock for learning services next year as we bring that out to schools. And what I'm really hearing from how you use your podcast is you're giving that time to every student to get into conceptual understanding in mathematics. You've structured it in a way that doesn't take up more of your time, but allows each student to work at their own pace and work at their own ability levels.
That's the big thing. That's the wonderful thing about the podcast, is that I teach normally. I teach like I teach. I teach like every other teacher out there. But the nice thing is I have this as a reinforcement of what the learning is. And that's going back to the idea of that if you didn't get a concept, just scan the code, watch it again, relearn it, learn it at your own time. And again, math might be at 9 o'clock in the morning. By the time they get to look at the math again, it's 9 o'clock in the evening. How much do you remember from 12 hours ago? I don't. I don't remember. So it gives them the opportunity. It's like having your teacher in your back pocket, and it's going to support their learning. That's the big thing. I tell students it's not a replacement of the teacher. In no way is this a replacement of the teacher. You can't replace a flesh and blood person up front, right? And all the little nuances that they're going to teach you. This is just to help support you and help guide you. And if you've got a problem with it, if there's something that you don't understand, you can always look at that and say, wow, now, okay, I see where this guy's coming from. Yeah, that's pretty cool. Or maybe that could be used as a stepping stone to another podcast from some other teacher. There's thousands upon thousands of them out there. And I really think, actually, surprisingly enough, when we went back, going back a couple of years during the COVID lockdown, I saw the metrics on my YouTube channel just go poof like this, because a lot of kids were tuning into the podcast. A lot of them were using the podcasts to really supplement their learning, the learning that they, of course, unfortunately, because of COVID, was really hurting them. It's hard to learn online. It really is hard to learn online. Some kids can do it, and I'm not putting down anybody who teaches online. As a matter of fact, I bow to them. That is, having done that through COVID, that's hard.
It is.
It's really hard. And credit to the teachers out there. We really grabbed the ball and ran with it. And the podcasts are there, again, just to support them. That's all it is. It's a support mechanism. It's not there to replace. It's there to support. They can watch it as many times as they want. They can look at it over and over and over and over again. And then the cool thing is it starts other conversations when they come back. And I've got a couple podcasts that actually have errors in them. And I haven't changed them, because they'll come back and say, well, Mr. Pryma, in this particular question. And I'm like, yes. Well, I noticed this is wrong. Well, really? Why?
Yeah.
You tell me what's wrong with that podcast. You tell me what's wrong with my answer and what was my approach, okay, on this. And there's only two. There's one in a Math 30 and there's one in a Math, no, both of them are in my Math 30-1s in two different spots. And I'm like, I was going to change them. And I looked at it and went, no, let's see what kind of conversation. And it does. I get emails on it going, I think you were wrong on this one. I'm like, yes, I was. Very, very good. So they are not just sitting there and being passive watchers. They're being active and part of the lesson. And it's really neat to see. It's very, very cool.
I'm hearing a lot of engagement from your students. They're engaged in the learning process and they're taking ownership over their learning. How do you make mathematics relevant to their daily lives?
Mathematics is life, right? I always say, add to your winnings, subtract out the negative, make it positive, multiply your earnings, divide and conquer. These are all things that I always use with my students. I think the most important to make math relevant is an understanding by the teacher, the deep understanding of mathematics. Where is mathematics going? Mathematics is not just engineering. It's not engineering. It's sure, part of it is. It's like, I have a friend of mine. She's actually was the dean of engineering at the University of Alberta. And her husband actually teaches in the district here. And it's Anya Ulrich. And she is amazing. She came and she did a wonderful presentation for our students at MAC, and I'm going to have her back again this year. And she says, was the dean of engineering, and I want you to know that engineering isn't building bridges. It's much more than that. And it's just like mathematics. Mathematics is not just adding x's and x squareds and all this other stuff. No, there's more to mathematics than just x and x squared. They need to see where it's going. So some of it, yes, I do bring the idea, especially Math 20, when you're talking about parabolas, that bridge idea, the arcs of the bridge, the Golden Gate Bridge in San Francisco. I mean, I think every teacher uses that. Throwing a ball in the air, the arc of a diver off a diving board. These are all things that we use to kind of focus the student attention. But then I turn it and I said, you want to make money? And right away, the students are like, oh, money? Did he say the magic word? Money? Pa-ching, right?
Yeah.
Eyes are lighting up with little dollar signs on them. I'm like, okay, let's talk. And these are what I call teachable moments. This is maybe not part of the curriculum, but you can tie it into the curriculum. And I ask them things like, okay, what do you think a decent wage is? It's remarkable. They'll turn around and say, oh, $25 an hour. If I get $25 an hour, I'd be happy. And I'm like, okay, let's start with $25 an hour. And we figure out how many hours a week we work, how many hours a month, or how many weeks a month that we work. And we start with a monthly wage. And then everybody who's out there knows, okay, start deducting things. First thing, deduct right off the top, taxes. And we take the taxes off. And you should see some of these students will be like, well, that's not fair. Well, actually, it is, because they're right away they start saying, oh, taxes is so evil. And I'm like, okay, no, this is a teachable moment. What do we need the taxes for? Well, the taxes provide for our healthcare. They pay for the education. They pay for the police. They pay for the roads. They pay for the military. They pay for all of these wonderful things that we don't really need right now, but they're there to help us. So when we are in need, for example, when I call the ambulance and the ambulance comes and takes me away and takes me to the hospital, I know that my taxes are working to help pay for that doctor and that medical team to make sure that I'm okay. Right? So these are all things. So we talk about the taxes idea and they're like, oh, now I understand. Okay, great. Then we start talking about, okay, other things. What does it cost to live? What is rent? Okay. What is things that you don't realize? Insurance, right? Yeah, you need insurance. What are the costs of a car? What is the maintenance cost? What are the gasoline costs? And suddenly you see, when we start with that golden wage, that golden amount every month, and we start deducting, and suddenly these kids are going, oh my goodness. And the way I conclude it is with, I think you need to understand something really, really important here, kids. Don't get a job, get a career. Stay in school, go to post-secondary, get that degree or that diploma or whatever it is that you're after, get a career. A career is so much more important than just a job. And that'll give you livelihood, that'll give you security, that'll give you, and I said, other things that come with your job are benefits. We talked about all of these deductions from their paycheck. We didn't talk about a dentist. We didn't talk about a medical bill for some sort of prescription that you need now, right? These are all added expenses that if you have a career, you'll have those kind of benefits. So we talk about that. And then I do for Math 30, and I'm sure a lot of teachers will do this, but I do a session on saving. How do you save? And the number one thing that I tell my students, how to save, I said, it's not easy. But saving and sacrifice is what you have to do in your life. You have to sacrifice. Okay, so you're not going to go out to that movie this month. You're not going to go out to dinner this month. You're not going to go out and do this and this. You're going to try to save. And how hard it is to even save after we do that budget. How hard it is to save even $200. But being able to save that $200, then we start talking about exponential growth. Putting it into something like a trust fund or into a mutual fund and watch how your money grows. And students have no clue. They think, I'm going to put it in the bank, I'm going to make $1 million tomorrow. Doesn't work that way. I said, I have an investment that's been going for 36 years. I started it it's called an RSP. I started it way back in my first year of teaching. And I didn't even think about it. I just started it. And every month, and I tell them monthly contributions and this and this. And sometimes the market will go up. Sometimes the market will go down. Any way that it goes, you have to use mathematics. That's all mathematics working for you, right? And how wonderful that is. And I tell them, okay, let's sit down. If we do this, let's say over 15 years, and we put this amount of money every month, how much money do you think you'll have? And they're totally blown away by the way the mathematics, the compound interest works.
Yeah.
And they're like, what? I'm like, yes. Then I flip it on them. And I said, ask your parents how hard it is to save. Especially after you walk in with that $250 cell phone bill and those $300 ripped jeans. Right? And you tell them, oh, I'm sorry, I used your Visa. Right? Ask them how hard it is to save. And I really encourage my students, talk to your parents. Some of the parents will be very open. I even get emails back saying, "This was wonderful. I had to sit down talk with my son or daughter, and I explained to them this is what we pay every month," and they were totally blown away. Gives a new respect to the parents from the kids' perspective. I remember teaching with a gentleman. He was our guidance counselor at St. Albert High when I was out in Greater St. Albert Catholic there, and Brian had a beautiful poster on his door. And in big, bold letters, it said, "Students, revolt against your parents. Move out now!" With exclamation, exclamation. And then down in 6-point font, it said, "While you still know everything." I thought that was just the most incredible poster I've ever seen. And it's true. Once you move out, and I tell students this, once you move out, the things that you learn, it's hard. But at least they have the knowledge now and the support from their families and from their schooling to help them do a little bit of budgeting, to help them realize it's not easy. So I like, long story short, and I know I'm going on a big, huge tangent on this. I think the long story short is when you show students the mathematics behind how things work, they really appreciate it. And they start to think, yeah, because I really, those posts that sometimes you see on social media, "Oh, another day that I didn't use trigonometry." Well, it's another day you didn't read Shakespeare either, but why do we study those things, right? Because those things help us to problem solve. Those things help us to understand what art is, what good literature means, what passion behind the author is all about, the passion behind the teacher teaching you the mathematics.
Yeah.
These are things that you're missing out by saying, "I don't need trigonometry." Well, actually you do, because it teaches you that hidden curriculum, that curriculum on how to problem solve when you're given a difficult task. I think that's what mathematics is all about.
I love that you said hidden curriculum.
It is.
Right? Even though we're in these academic classes of Math 30, Math 30-1, it's that hidden curriculum. What are we actually doing in education? We're preparing people for the world.
Oh, yes.
For society.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I tell my students, I look back at them and I go, "You know what, kids? I think I'm in good hands." I said, the reason why I do the things I do, the reason why I have the podcast channel, the reason why I teach with so much passion, I says, one of these days when you graduate, and let's say you become that nurse or that doctor or whoever, and you come up to that room, and you know how they come up to that room and they always knock on the door before they come in, and you'll see someone sitting there and it's like, "Hi, it could be me." And I want to make sure that I teach you the best I can. So that time comes where I need you. I know that I've done a good job in teaching you so that you can help me. So I'll help you. I'll help you now, but hopefully, when I need it, you can help me too. And I said, it's not necessarily just being a doctor. It's not just necessarily doing, being a lawyer, but who knows? Maybe I might need some construction work done. Excuse me. I might need legal services on a will. I might need, some sort of renovation done in my house. Whatever it is, I hope I can depend on you. And I tell my students, I have students that are doing amazing things. I have a former student of mine who works for Boeing. I have another former student who I tutored him physics last week. Was his birthday. He launched a communication satellite.
Wow.
With a company out of California. I was blown away by that. I'm like, "I taught you." And they're like, yes, you did. And it's really neat to see. And I've got students who are chefs. I have students who are plumbers. I have a student actually who is a garbage man, refuse engineer, as he likes to refer to himself. And I said, these are all people who are contributing to a better society. That's why we teach, I think, is we want to make our society better. We want kids to see that there is opportunities out there to do all kinds of wonderful things. So
the last piece of teacher clarity, as we talk about it with our assessment team, is how do students know that they've achieved the learning goal? How do they know that they've achieved in their learning? What makes that clear for them?
Well, what makes it clear for them? I think the big thing is when they look at the learning, and they actually, what's really cool, I try this activity with my students, not right away. Once they get a flavor for their teacher, okay, once they finally feel like, oh, okay, I'm comfortable with this man, I ask them, what's going to be on the test? That's my favorite thing. What's going to be, you tell me from your learning what's going to be on the test. And they'll go, oh, well, this question for sure. I'm like, well, you're probably right. Yeah, that's going to be on the test. So write it on the whiteboard. Okay, what else? Well, probably going to ask this one. Yeah. And you're probably going to ask something like this. Yeah. When they start to predict what's going to be on the test, I think they're at a higher level.
Mm.
They understand the curriculum, they understand what they've learned, and they're now at that point where they can say, oh, yeah, that's going to be on the test, that'll be on the test, that'll be on the test. I've got this.
Mm-hmm.
And as a teacher, I feel back, I look back and I say, that's pretty darn cool.
Mm-hmm.
When they can start predicting what's going to be on the test. And surprisingly enough, when they start predicting what you're going to say in class as well, like, you're going this way with that. I know you're going this way with that question. And they'll raise their hand. Is the next step this? You got it. That to me is learning. That to me is so cool. I actually even encourage my students to flip learn, right? In a flip classroom, watch the podcasts, do the notes beforehand, come to class knowing what I'm going to say next, and then just absorb it. Just learn, listen, watch, because you've got the notes down.
Mm-hmm.
Watch what's happening. Then let's ask the deeper questions. Where is this going? What are we going to use this for? Where is this going to be? And I had one student just last semester, every day ask the same question. What are we going to need this for? And he says, Mr. Pryma, I'm not trying to insult you, but I just want a better grasp on where we're going with this. And I'm like, I'm so happy you're asking that question.
Mm-hmm.
This is where we're going with this. This, to me, is how students learn, how students not just learn it, but actually absorb it and make it their own. People can come in, sit down and write a test in one eye, out the other, and it's gone, right? They walk out of the, how'd you know? I don't know, I just wrote every question. Well, okay, to me, that's not learning. To me, is being able to understand it, absorb it, and then apply it. And I think that helps, whether it's either a teaching style, right, or a curriculum thing, or a podcast thing, whatever a teacher uses in their classroom to get them to that level of understanding. Kudos to them, and kudos to the student as well.
I'm going to throw in a question. I didn't prep you for it before.
Sure.
Thinking back to the beginning of your career, and there's
okay.
there's teachers who are living that right now. They're at the beginning of their career. What's a piece of advice you have for them?
Wow. Take a deep breath. Enjoy this career. It's magnificent. You see so many students over your lifetime, and it's so neat to hear. Case in point, yesterday we were at Urath House for a retreat for Indigenous Day. And I'm walking to my car in the parking lot, and a lady comes up to me, and she says, "Excuse me." I'm like, "Hello." She goes, "Are you Mr. Pryma?" Yes. "You taught me science 30 years ago." I'm like, "Oh my goodness. I just wanted to thank you." That was 30 years ago, and they still remember you?
Mm-hmm.
That to me is the coolest part of education, right? Having them remember you 30 years from now and saying that you were a positive influence on their life. The other thing, for young teachers, don't think you're an island. You're not an island. There are so many people who will help you. You just have to find the right ones. Ask questions. Ask your neighbor. If they outright refuse, never ask them again.
Mm-hmm.
Find somebody. Get on things like the Facebook page that I'm on with the high school teachers. There's one for junior high. There's one for elementary. Ask questions. You'd be surprised how many people say, "Try this, try this, try this, try this," or "Here, just message me. I'll give you all my stuff."
Mm-hmm.
I'm at that point, like I said before, I'm not going to die with a USB stick in my pocket with all of my files on it. No, thanks. Okay. If I can help you, let me know. Find those teachers. They're out there. Talk to the master teachers. There's so many of us out there who'd be more than willing to help you. I don't believe in hoarding. I don't believe in recreating the wheel. The wheel has been invented. Just tweak it. Tweak it to your own style. Tweak it to what your needs are. Tweak it. And I know it's overwhelming. The first couple of years are very, very overwhelming. But I will put it against anybody's career. Show me a career that is more rewarding than teaching. Honestly. That's why you're not going to get rid of this old guy here. I love this too much. I could have retired years ago. I'm not. I love this way too much. I'm enjoying myself, and I feel as long as I'm making a positive contribution to education and to student learning, I'm going to stick with it a little while longer.
I think your response is leading into the question I ask all podcast guests before they leave is, what's a dream you have for education?
I'm living the dream. I love this job. I love working for UCSD. I love the students mostly. They are the reason why I wake up in the morning. They are the reason why I do what I do. It's not just all of the brilliant students that I teach, it's all of the students.
Mhm.
It's the ones struggling that turn around and suddenly it's like stars in their eyes. They're like, oh, I get it. It's that I get it feeling. That's my dream. I'm living that dream right now. I love education. I love everything about it. Sure, there's people who will complain about, oh, class size and oh, this and this and oh, you know what? Yeah. Are we ever going to get rid of that? My 36 years, I've never seen anything happen that way. I hate to say, sure, they've initiatives to get this done, initiatives to get that done. But, honestly, bottom line is, why are we in education? We're in education to teach students so that society can become better. And honestly, so that they can look after you. My dream for education is every student's success. I really wish it could happen. But success for one student is different for another student. I have a student who in my class got a 70% and she was in tears. I had another student who went 70%. She's like, yes. And she's doing handstands around my classroom. I'm like, whoa, slow down. It's amazing. Their success is their own. But as a job of a teacher is to make sure that you present the information in such a way and you teach in such a way that you're supporting their learning and supporting who they are and understanding and being compassionate to them. So in answer to that, I think I'm living the dream. I really am. I really think I feel blessed to be called a teacher. I feel blessed to have this many students over my career. I hope there's more to come. And the day that I walk out of the school is going to be a very, very sad day for me. But I will hold my chin up very, very high and knowing that I had a positive influence on a lot of kids. And I really think I've done a good job. And I hope I can continue doing that job for several more years to come. Because I really think teaching is a noble profession. It's a beautiful profession. And the fact that we can support kids, man, that's our future right there. Living the dream.
Thank you so much, Ray. I feel so inspired by the conversation we've had today.
Thank you. I do my best.
Before we leave, for our listeners, do you want to just say the title of your YouTube channel?
Oh, sure. It's called Mac, M-A-C, and Pryma, my last name, P-R-Y-M-A. And it's amazing when you type it into the YouTube channel. When you do a search and you just put down Mac, M-A-C, and then start spelling my name with P-R-Y, it's suddenly, boom, it comes up as one of your first hits. So 935 podcasts strong.
Wow.
I'm trying to make about 30 more before the school's out. And over 750,000 hits already, which makes me feel really, really proud that it's out there and it's helping. So keep watching. I hope it helps. And there's this little email there if you want to email me and let me know if there's something you need. I'm there for you. I'll help.
Yeah, I'm proud you should be. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me. It's wonderful.
What? Are we still doing that? A one-size-fits-all exam? Well, let's face it. We know that we do have some summative tests provincially, like PATs, diplomas, where there is one overall aggregate summative assessment. Okay, let's park that to the side. What we have in the context of our teaching time with our learners over the span of the year or semester is the opportunity to personalize, to differentiate, to give students an opportunity to really demonstrate areas for growth that still might be needed, so that elements of reteaching, ultimately moving them towards mastery. So if there's some students who need a few extra questions in terms of, let's say, more focused on multiplying by 2 digits versus a student who needs more time with maybe just 1 digit, then we can differentiate that type of test as the teacher. So there is no Goldilocks zone, that one size where everything is perfect for everybody. And so differentiating, modifying, or adapting based on the learning needs of students is critically important. So the one size fits all, as much as we understand it may be efficient for time-wise or ease of marking or facilitation, it does truly miss the boat in terms of reaching those kids that might need to express their learning or be supported in their learning in a different way. So let's stop using, or to a lesser degree, using one size fits all tests. What do you think?
What's worth fighting for in grading? In collaboration with Leanne Young, Douglas Reeves, and Ken O'Connor present a thought-provoking exploration of popular grading practices in education that have been entrenched for many, many years. The article sheds light on 4 common grading practices: the use of the average, grading homework, the use of the zero, and grading behavior and late work. Reeves, Young, and O'Connor explain how these practices have the potential to harm students and undermine the overall instructional culture. One of the standout features of this 4-page article is its critical examination of grading norms. The authors skillfully dissect these prevalent practices, offering readers a comprehensive understanding of the potential pitfalls associated with these methodologies. This reflective approach challenges educators to reconsider established norms and contemplate their impact on student learning. The practical insights provided by Reeves, Young, and O'Connor make this article a valuable resource for educators at all levels. By highlighting the potential drawbacks of these popular grading practices, the authors empower teachers to make informed decisions about their assessment strategies. The reader is not only made aware of what to avoid, but is also equipped with alternative approaches that foster a healthier instructional culture. What's worth fighting against in grading serves as a compelling guide for educators seeking to refine their grading practices. By pinpointing common pitfalls, the authors contribute to a growing conversation on how grading can better serve the interests of both students and the broader educational community. This article is a must-read for teachers and administrators alike, invested in creating fair, effective, equitable, and supportive learning environments for their students.
As we conclude today's agenda, a heartfelt gratitude goes out to Ray Pryma for sharing his expertise. And to you, our dedicated listeners. Stay connected with us on Instagram at ECSD Learning, and don't forget to subscribe for updates on future episodes. We hope that today's episode sparks inspiration for meaningful connections in education and encourages a thoughtful approach to assessment practices. As you continue your journey of growth, may you find fulfillment and impactful connections. Thank you for tuning in to the Learning Curve podcast with Edmonton Catholic Schools.